Hi, good morning, friends. Good morning, good evening, as per your time zone. Because I think many you joining from US, Canada, and other part of globe, and I am in India, so it's evening for me. I'm Kumkum Sharma from Bridge, and I'm back again on my live sessions. On the behalf of entire Bridge team, I would like to welcome you in live Q&A session with me and Sanjay. Hi Sanjay, thank you very much joining me once again. And thank you Seema joining me. Seema is my colleague and she'll share her knowledge around the PMI ACP, PMP. If you have any questions, you can ask these questions little later because first we want to focus on the agile coaching and Kanban. These two things are, I am discussing from couple of weeks with many participants, and I think approximately a year back Sanjay and me discussed many things around these topics, but I thought, okay, let's discuss again, let's disturb Sanjay again and make some videos on these. So Sanjay, how would you like to start this session?
I'm ready. You can start with your Kanban questions first, maybe, and then we can see
Perfect,
what
perfect,
questions you have
Sanjay.
in coaching. Yeah.
Thanks for giving me this opportunity. I have my list of questions, but before jumping on my list of questions, I just would like to share a couple of things with our audience. So, guys, no matters whether you're watching this from Facebook, LinkedIn, or YouTube, you can add your questions. Just drop your questions in the comment box. I'll add your questions and Sanjay will answer your questions. Our topics are Kanban and Agile coaching. If you have something related to how to become Agile coach, how can Agile coach help the organization, how the Agile coaching can help your career and boost your career, and how the Kanban is different from the Scrum. So we'll discuss all these things. But if you have any specific questions, we'll definitely love to add your questions. Agenda is driven by you, not by me. All these questions I got from other participants in last couple of weeks. So I think let's start our session and let me ask you the first question. So Sanjay, my first question is, what is your experience with agile transformation?
Thanks, Kumkum. Uh, I have been working as an independent agile coach and trainer for the past 7 years now. Right. Before that, I was into software development for more than 15 years, and in last 7 years, that's when I have been doing training and coaching. I used to train people on certified Scrum developer from Scrum Alliance plus PMI ACP, and now I focus mostly on Kanban certifications and ICP ACC, which is Agile Coaching Certification. That is the training part. But in addition to that, on the weekdays, I do coaching. I provide coaching services to different clients, and I've had the opportunity to work with multiple startups, some mid-sized organizations, and also some big companies with thousands of people, right? And yeah, that has been my a quick summary of what my experience has been with agile coaching and training.
Lovely. Thank you, Sanjay. Thanks for sharing. So, could you please emphasize a little more on this area? What is the, because you are the one who's working as an agile coach. So, what are the role and responsibility in the organization of agile coach?
Mhm. Yeah, that's a big question. We normally spend about, I think, more than half an hour to in our
Oh,
ICPCC program to explain about the responsibilities. But in short, agile coaching works at two different levels. One is you are given a set of teams, right? And you have to transition them to agile. You will still have roles like product owner and scrum master. And your role as an agile coach is to mentor everyone, educate everyone, and coach everyone on agile ways of working. That's more of a team centric view, you can say. A set of 5 to 10 teams you could have. 10 is a little higher, usually about 4 to 6 teams, you can say. The other level at which you is agile coach. An enterprise agile coach works at the organization level, right? So if you have an organization which has, let's say, 1,000 people, you'll have an enterprise agile coach who is talking to the leadership, trying to understand the vision of the transformation, creating a roadmap, right? And finding out how do we start. Do we start with all 1,000 people, or do we start a smaller set of, let's say, 100 or 200 people, right? And usually, an enterprise agile coach will be assisted by other coaches, agile coaches, who will focus more on the team level transformation. So that's a rough, you can say the world of agile coaching. You can have team level agile coaches helping multiple teams, or you could have an enterprise agile coach who, in addition to team level coaching, might be working at the leadership, working with the leadership, and sort of steering that entire transformation forward. Yeah,
Perfect. Sounds really great. And it's sounding really interesting, Sanjay. So definitely not today, but we'll go deep down in the, role and responsibility of agile coach. And you have to give me the 30 minutes conversation.
sure.
But meanwhile, I think we are getting some questions. So let me just take the questions one by one. Okay. So Sanjay, this is our first question. Okay. So you want me to read for you, or
I can see one. Is it the agile coach versus agile PMP?
which is more desirable for the companies, which are more secure, which is better option financially speaking? So what is
Yeah,
your opinion?
I'm not sure about agile PMP much. So to be honest, we are talking about certification here, right?
Right.
Do you? Uh, does any one of you has a better idea? Because I will not be able to compare between agile coach and agile PMP as a certification, right?
So I think in new version of PMP there is a good amount of agile involved. Okay, so but agile coach versus agile PMP, this is little tricky thing. So
Yeah,
Seema, would
so
you like? Yeah.
my guess is Agile PMP could be. I'm not sure if Seema knows she can throw light, but it could be similar to, uh, CSM kind of program. Seema, do you have an idea? What
Yeah,
do they cover?
yeah. Sorry. When we talk about project management, be it is in agile or in traditional, PMP is always relevant. So if you are a project manager where agile approaches are used, then still you can say that PMP is relevant for you because here after Jan 2021. PMP exam has changed. Now the project management processes are viewed both from the traditional point of view and agile point of view. Because when you are doing project management, you always need to see how risks are managed, how you are monitoring things for different perspective, like how your vendors are associated with your project, and how you are engaging stakeholders which are not part of your organization. So these things are still relevant if, even if you're using agile methods or agile approaches. So that's why PMP is now relevant both for agile and traditional methods. And if I talk about agile coach in the PMP, so there is a coach part of it also in the PMP, but not in detail, but it talks about that how to empower team members, how what is the importance of emotional intelligence, how to promote team performance. So people aspects is more now in PMP. So there is a flavor of agile coach in the PMP also, but not
Yeah.
in.
So, and I think we are not very clear about the, you're comparing agile coach versus PMP, because we never heard about any agile PMP. So it's, if you're asking about the agile coach versus PMP, then I think, yeah, then we can discuss this
But I
later.
can probably mention a little bit about Agile Coach certification. Now,
Yeah.
there's multiple certifications from different organizations, like Scrum Alliance, Scrum.org doesn't have a coach certification, but Scrum Alliance has CTC and CEC. Plus, recently they have created this advanced Scrum Master program, right, for the past few years, which goes beyond the basics of Scrum and talks about a little bit of facilitation and coaching, but not much in detail. There is another certification from ICHI, and that's the training I provide, ICP ACC. It's a 3-day classroom training, roughly, and that goes deeper into different aspects of agile coaching. And the other two programs I talked about, CTC and CEC from Scrum Lines, those are not learning based certifications, right? So there's no training for that. It's more of an evaluation based certification. You already have experience, you already have knowledge, and you apply for that certification. So if you look at training based certification, ICP ACC is one of the most popular program, and we have been doing it for the past 6 years.
Yeah, so I think Saki is asking about the comparison between Agile coaching and PMI ACP only, right?
You got it. So PMI ACP is a very good certification. As I mentioned, I used to provide training on that few years back. But the focus area is more about understanding frameworks. The agile, what is agile, what is Scrum, and there's a little bit of coverage of Kanban and extreme programming also. So they talk about PMIC covers primarily different frameworks you have. Also, it talks about different situations of how do you deal with this, how do you deal with that. But it's more relevant at the Scrum Master level, I would say. Right? It's an entry level program, we can say, an advanced entry level program. Agile coaching assumes that you have done a basic certification like CSM, PSM, or PMI-ACP, and it does not cover the basics of a framework. It talks about the additional learning, the higher level learning of being a good coach.
Okay. So what I'm understanding, Sanjay, correct me if my understanding is wrong. So PMI ACP will teach you about the fundamental level of things, not the
Yep,
coach level things.
that's
Perfect.
right.
Perfect. Sounds really great. Okay, so we have one more questions in bits and pieces. So let me just enterprise agile coach expert. Okay, and this is the part of this question. Can you please recommend where to start preparation? Okay, and there is a one
For
more part of this.
ICAC, right?
Yeah,
Mhm.
I'm PMI ACP and ACC. Okay, okay. So I think Ananta is looking for ICEC, right?
Yeah, ICAC. So if you look at the roadmap of IC Agile certification, they have different tracks on that. One of them is team coaching track, one is enterprise coaching track. And if you focus on team coaching track, in each track there are multiple certifications. In the track that Anant is talking about, which is ICEAC, you first do the facilitator program, which is ICP ATF, and then you do ICP ACC, which Anant has already done. After that, after you have done all the programs, usually there are 2 to 3 programs in each track, then you apply for ICEAC, which is the expert level certification. For expert level certification, there is no additional training. It's more of an evaluation that happens, right? And the best would be, Anant, if you drop a message on ICHL site that you want to have more information about ICAC, because from what I recall, is they do not have that information uh, available on the site. They might have changed that. They might have made it available, but it's an evaluation based certification. You'll have to submit your profile. You may have to provide some sample videos of how you facilitate meetings, and after you submit profile, they will review your profile, and they will set up an interview kind of thing, which could be for an hour or more, but they would like to see you in action, right? They would create some sample scenarios and would ask you to mentor somebody or coach somebody. So it's a very very practice based evaluation that happens. There's no additional training for that. Kumkum, we can move on.
Perfect. Thanks, Sanjay. So, Sanjay, I think, yeah, let me just, start the hot cake these days, Kanban. Okay, so these days I'm seeing the requirement of Kanban certification is increasing. A lot of people are, looking for Kanban, and I think it's helping organization. That's why people are looking. So, what is Kanban and how it's different from Scrum?
Okay, so I'll need to share something here because there are lots of There's quite a few confusion of on Kanban. I'm sharing my screen. Let me know if you can see. Can you see my screen?
Let me just add the screen. Yes, we can.
Okay, cool. So there are lots of myths about Kanban. I'll quickly go through that because it's important to understand what exactly Kanban is, and in case because there are a lot of myths, also to understand what Kanban is not. Right. So the first common myth that people have is it's exactly what Toyota used, in 1950s to 70s. Right. That's a myth. Or people will say Kanban is something for manufacturing. It's related to the first one. And there are some people who would say Kanban is relevant for support projects. For development project, you have to use Scrum. And then people say Kanban has no meetings, Kanban has no metrics, and Kanban has no roles, right? And then you would see both kind of people. Some people believe first you use Scrum, then you can transition to Kanban. That's a better approach. Or first you use Kanban and then transition to Scrum. So the both kind of people who say that. Now I'll quickly share about what is Kanban. Now, yes, Kanban has inspiration in Lean and many other things. But this Kanban that we're talking about, number one is we are talking about Kanban method, right? This is an important thing. And we are talking about Kanban method. And this Kanban method has been adapted for knowledge work industry. Knowledge work industry, like IT industry, uh, it works for, of course, IT, so software development. It can also work for support projects, right? It can work for even HR or marketing kind of department, wherever there is a thinking work, right? Knowledge work, it can be used there. It's very adaptive. It can be used for any kind of project, right? It does have meetings, it does have metrics, it has roles defined. And to give you a quick glimpse of what is the core of Kanban method, there are 6 core practices. I'm not going through the entire, principles and metrics and everything because that would require a longer time. So we covered most of that in the 2-day KMP1 program. But let me give you a quick summary of what different core practices that we have. There are 6 core practices. The first one is visualize your work, whatever work the team is working on. Visualize that, and visualization of Kanban is what SAFe uses at different levels, right? Not only team level but also program level and portfolio level. So that visualization part can be used anywhere, wherever there is a work flowing. Second is limit work in progress, defer commitment. Don't be in a hurry to start too much of work because that does not result in a smooth flow of work. Third is manage flow, right? Keep an eye on how things are moving, and for that, metrics will be useful. Metrics plus also team meetings to make sure work is flowing smoothly, and if there are any issues, let's talk about. Fourth one, make policies explicit. Team should have a clear idea about how do we work, right? And we want to make it explicit, not implicit, where people assume that this is how we work, and then later on it leads to confusion. So we want to make our policies explicit. A common example that you can find in the Scrum world, similar to making policies explicit, is the definition of ready and definition of done. Those are examples of explicit policies. The fifth one, implement feedback loops. Kanban has meetings. Kanban has a daily Kanban, similar to daily Scrum, runs slightly differently. Kanban has a replenishment meeting, which roughly equates to your planning meeting. And then Kanban has service delivery review, which is similar to the team retrospective. So those are the 3 important meetings at the team level. And then, of course, the last thing is just like any agile process, we want to believe in continuous improvement. We want to pursue continuous improvement. And Kanban recommends that let's take a hypothesis driven approach, an experimental scientific approach, where we review things every now and then, look at how things are working, what is not working. And Kanban focuses a lot on the metrics, right? So in addition to the people's feelings and subjective assessment, we also have to look at the objective assessment of how exactly are we doing. And based on that, you try to find some new ideas which will make you a better team, a better organization. That will be your hypothesis. And then find practices that will help you get there. And you review that somewhere down the line to make sure if it's working or not working for you. Right. So that's a quick high level summary of Kanban. Kumkum, back to you.
Thank you very much, Sanjay, for the wonderful explanation of what is Kanban. Thank you very much. So, those who just joined us, let me just give you the quick, introduction of our session. Today, I have Sanjay Kumar with us. Sanjay is well-known name in the world of Agile. He's a trainer, he's a coach, and he's an author as well. And we are discussing Agile coaching, Agile coach path, and Kanban. So importance of these certification, these roles in the organization. We are discussing all these things. If you have something around this area, don't be shy, just drop your questions in the comment box and I'll ask your question. And we have one question. So Sanjay, I'm just adding the question on your screen. How do a scrum master lead 2 3 high performing team, 8 to 9 members? Will SMB burn out in this position? What would be the ideal number of team size team and SM can lead?
Sure. Okay, so let me quickly cover a question that many people have, which is the difference between Scrum Master and Agile Coach before I answer this question. Right? There's a confusion, and there are different schools of thought. Some people who are you can say who have strong belief in Scrum, you will hear them say that Scrum Master is same as Agile Coach, right? Which is true to some extent. But I'm going to share the industry definition of Agile Coach and Scrum Master. Yes, Scrum Master is a coach, a team level coach. And think of a Scrum Master as a dedicated coach, right? Who stays with the team, right? So Scrum Master is a dedicated coach for one or more teams. An Agile coach is somebody who is, you can think of Agile coach as a temporary coach. It's not a permanent role. And you need an Agile coach when the team is yet to transition to Agile, right? Especially when, let's say, the team is new, the Scrum Master is new, the product owner could also be new. So the role of Agile coach, and Agile coach would work with multiple teams, is to transition the team to Agile ways of working, which includes not only educating people about Agile, but also mentoring them, right, on how things need to be done, and also facilitate meetings in the beginning, and then provide that one-on-one coaching to different roles, right? So a coach comes to work with, let's say, 3 to 6 teams, which is the ideal number, helps them, handholds them, and after some time, when the Scrum Master and product owner gain a decent maturity to take care of things on their own, the Agile coach will transition, will step back and transition into more of an advisor role. She or she may not need that active interaction with the team because Scrum Master and product owner have learned how to do things on their own. Right? So that's the role of a coach. Now coming back to Scrum Master will stay with the team even if the team is performing very well. It doesn't mean that they do not need the Scrum Master. They need less time of the Scrum Master, but it's very important for the Scrum Master to stay there with the team. So Scrum Master is a dedicated coach role, right? Because what happens is, let's say you have a high performance team. Sometimes some events happen because of which the team may shift back into storming phase or disruptive phase. An example could be there's a major challenge, right, or major failure in production, right? Or some team structure has changed, people have left, some people have joined, and these events could disrupt the team environment, and that's why you need a coach kind of person, always be there, keep monitoring the team health, team dynamics, and make sure the team does not slip back to lower levels of performance. So that's a dedicated coach role, a Scrum Master role. Now coming to the question that was about how many teams a Scrum Master can handle. And so far, I've been emphasizing on the word dedicated, right? That requires effort, that requires time. And that is the reason it would not make sense for the Scrum Master to go beyond 2 teams. That's my experience. I've seen people who come to my training and who are taking care of 3 teams, 4 teams, and the max I've heard is 6 teams as Scrum Master, right? And in most of the cases, wherever the number of teams are more than two, these people were sounding very stressed, right? Because you have a limited mind space. If you want to be actively involved with the team, you want to tune into each and every team member, their way of working. You want to figure out what support I need to provide to different team members, right? Whether they ask for it or not, right? You have limited mind space. I think beyond 15, 20 people is going to be difficult. So my number that I'm going to share with you is 2, right? It's not a standard number mentioned anywhere. It's just my experience that more than 2 teams is going to be a big challenge. And if the team is absolutely new, and especially a bigger team, let's say 7 to 9 members, in the beginning you might be pretty busy with just one team, right? So maybe you start with one team if the team is new. If the team has gained some maturity, then you can take one more team. 3 is going to be a stretch. Yeah.
Perfect. Sounds really
Okay.
great. Gaurav, I think you got the answer. And if you have any follow up questions, you can drop your follow up questions as well. And I'm just adding one more question. So, Sanjay, let me read for you. Shruti is asking, if I need to get the training and certification on Kanban, is KMP is a good certification? I'm an agile coach.
Yeah. So you may call it my biased view, but I would say KMP is all you need to get started. And to be honest, there are 2 parts of KMP certification, KMP1 and KMP2. And I'll be honest, you only need to KMP, you need only need KMP1 to get started. Do not be in a hurry to do KMP2, right? KMP1, it gives you enough knowledge. uh, it covers the meetings, at least the team level meetings and the metrics in detail, right? Many of the coaches I've seen who have tried Kanban, who have used Kanban with teams, but they fail to interpret Kanban metrics. It's not rocket science. It's just that they have not been introduced to it, right? So to summarize, KMP1 should be good enough certificate to start. It will give you enough knowledge to start implementing Kanban for your teams. And somewhere down the line, once you have applied, once you have helped a few teams in the transition to Kanban, 3 to 6 months down the line, when you're ready for more knowledge, then you can come back for KMP2.
Perfect. Great, Sanjay and Shruti. If you have any follow up questions, you can drop your questions again. And you're welcome, Gaurav. I'm glad you got the answer. So, okay. So, I think I can go back to my list. And as we are waiting for the other questions. So, guys, if you have any questions, feel free to drop your questions. Just drop your questions in the comment box. And okay. So, one more questions. Let me just read for you. I agree your opinion on Kanban metrics. Okay, it's not a question. Perfect. So
Right.
Sanjay, I have a follow-up question. Okay, so could you please put some more light? What are the strength of Kanban and what are the challenges?
Okay. Now, in terms of strengths, I did mention that Kanban is a very flexible framework. They don't call it framework actually, right? They call it a Kanban method. It's a management method to manage your work to make sure there is a smooth flow of work. Now, the strong point of Kanban is a continuous flow of work. If you look at Scrum is a batch flow. You pull a certain set of requirements into the sprint and you want to get everything done before you move on to the second sprint, which is like working on a batch. Kanban is a continuous flow. It's an item-based flow, right? But it's not like a random ad hoc flow. Anything can come in, and anything can go out. It has some structure to make sure the work is streamlined, and so it has focus on flow. Make sure the things keep moving, right? So one is adaptability, flexibility. Second thing is powerful metrics, right? I'll probably talk about that a little bit later. What metrics you have. And the other thing is some advanced concepts like class of service, right? Class of service is, if I take an example, let's say you have to ship a package to somebody in a different city. If you go to the shipping company, right? Courier company, and you say, okay, I need to ship this package to a different city. The first question they will ask you is, after they ask you where you need to ship it, is how soon you want it to be delivered, right? How soon you want it to be delivered, and there might be options like expedite, priority, 2-day delivery, overnight delivery. Class of service is something similar to that, right? So depending on the urgency on a work item, you may define the class of service, so the team pays more attention to it and they can get it done faster. And that's something unique for an item based flow. You may not require that for maybe Scrum, because Scrum is a batch flow. The understanding is that the entire batch has to be done before the end of the sprint, right? But Kanban doesn't have sprints. Kanban is a continuous flow, so that concept is uh, more relevant for Kanban, for continuous flow. And a quick note here: classes of service, if they're related to the cost of delay. You might have heard about a phrase called cost of delay. Yes, related to that. Yeah, that was all. Come back to you.
Okay, great.
Oh,
So,
sorry,
Sanjay, yeah,
my
go
bad.
ahead,
I just
please.
realized that I didn't talk about the challenges part. I talked about the strengths. I didn't talk about the challenges. Now, just like a team could transition to Scrum and they may face challenges, and a Scrum team facing challenges does not mean that those are Scrum's weaknesses, right? The same way, if there's a Kanban team and they adopt Kanban, they will face challenges. They could face challenges, right? And that doesn't mean that there's something negative about Kanban. And some of the common challenges I'll share with you. One of them is Kanban does not have a defined template. There's no standard template. You need to customize the practices. And what that means is it's easier to start with Kanban. That's the positive. But sometimes people try a little bit of Kanban and they feel happy about it and they stop over there. I call that complacency with initial improvement, right? A common example is, especially when the person who's helping the team does not have idea about Kanban metrics. The simplest possible Kanban implementation would look like a board plus daily stand up, and that's it. Nothing more. The team sets up a board and they do daily stand up and they believe they have a transition to Kanban. And that happens because of the second challenge I'm going to talk about, which is lack of Kanban expertise in the industry. Among agile coaches, I've seen that everybody is knowledgeable about Scrum knowledge, but very few have idea about Kanban. They know a little bit of Kanban, like the visualization part, but they're not aware of Kanban meetings. They're not aware of Kanban metrics, right? So that's the biggest, I would say, challenge with Kanban, that people, even though they're smart enough, they just somehow do not have exposure about Kanban metrics, right? uh, Another challenge I can think of is, in some cases, if the focus of management is on productivity, right, getting more and more work done, they might overload the team, push too much work, which might make the life of team members very monotonous, right?
Right.
Scrum has a slack time at the end of each sprint. There is a slack time where the team sort of takes a break and retrospects, right? Kanban also, you can design that slack time. Even though Kanban is a continuous flow, there is no break in rhythm. But it's good to design some slack time where the team reviews the flow of work, does the retrospective, and maybe takes, does some team building game or whatever it is, right? But you have to design some slack time to break that rhythm and make it more sustainable.
Perfect, Sanjay. Perfect. Thank you very much, Sanjay. And there is a one more question, and this is really interesting question, Sanjay, because I think this question came because you said the initially you need just KMP1, so don't be in a rush to go for the KMP2 also. So may I ask a very interesting question? Will KMP1 give us a clear vision on Kanban metrics?
Absolutely. That's the key focus. So we spend about 4 hours in KMP1 to play a simulation game. And that game is a very powerful way of learning the flow. You see things moving from left to right, and then we track the data, and later on at the end of the game, we take about an hour to review those metrics, try to interpret metrics, and try to understand. And I've also tried to give some real life examples of how do metrics look in real life, right? So we spend quite a bit of time on metrics, and you should definitely have idea about both. One is the metrics, besides the basics, the metrics of Kanban, and the second thing is how do you apply Kanban to new teams? How do you help a new team adopt Kanban? We spend almost one full day or 2 half days, you can say, on understanding step by step. If you have a new team, how do you transition that team to Kanban? Yeah.
Perfect. Sounds great. There is a one question related to, somebody is trying to change job. I'll take that because I don't want to break the rhythm of Kanban. Okay, let's, finish all the Kanban related things. So there is a one more question. Okay, that's my Kanban team because we don't know, understand Kanban matrices. We use Jira and it's not a useful tool for Kanban matrices, in my opinion.
Absolutely agree. Uh, Jira is not the most powerful Kanban tool. Now, that being said, Jira gives you cumulative flow diagram. Jira gives you control chart. But interestingly, the y-axis of the Kanban, the control chart in Jira, they use a logarithmic scale, and which makes it look a little bit interesting, a little bit weird, right? What I found useful is there are lots of plugins with Jira, right? There are multiple plugins. If you use a plugin, it will give you metrics, cumulative flow diagram, which is slightly better looking cumulative flow diagram, and better looking control chart. Plus, it will give you the throughput chart, which Jira does not give you, team throughput. The other one is lead time distribution, right? Jira by default will not give you, right? And you're right that yeah, Jira probably needs to do a better job being the industry leader in for agile teams. Yes, but fortunately there are plugins available.
Perfect, perfect, Sanjay. I'm not sure about this. Please explain on Kanban matrices. Matrices. Metrics.
So
Sorry.
I'll just mention the Kanban metrics, and as I mentioned, it's a very short. I will not be able to cover them in such a short span of time, but I can list it for you, and you can note it down. One is the cumulative flow diagram. Then we have control chart, which is the lead time scatter plot. Then we have lead time distribution. Then we have throughput chart. Then we have flow efficiency. So these are some of the most common Kanban metrics that you can use.
Great. And one more, Sanjay, on a similar line. Is there any such metrics for Kanban to compare a Kanban team output to Scrum velocity?
Yeah, so if you want a similar metric, I talked about throughput chart, team throughput. You can use that. And some plugins, some tools will allow you to do throughput either in number of items or in terms of story points also. That's good, but please do not try to compare two teams. That's not recommended. Yeah.
Perfect. So, Sanjay, one more questions, not on Kanban, but I think as you are a transformation expert, you can suggest this person.
Okay. 10 years of QA and partially worked on Scrum model. Can I switch to Scrum Master? I do apply. Yeah, so I'm not an expert on providing you CV, but yes, many people who have QA background, I've seen them transition to Scrum Master role, right? Interestingly, recently there were two people who joined from Europe in my training, and for both of them, the organization had sort of a, I wouldn't say a policy or recommendation, but the the culture was such that most of the testers would move to the Scrum Master role. Interestingly, because the developers wanted to stay closer to the technology and they wanted to continue, being masters of technology, and the QA people usually would transition to Scrum Master role. So that was an interesting case I saw just a few months back. But coming back to your question, all you need is good exposure of implementation of Agile as a team member, a good knowledge, not only on how we do it, but also about why do we do it, right? So deeper understanding on Scrum, on Agile ways of working is what you need to be a Scrum Master. Anybody from the team, whether it is a developer, a tester, business analyst, anybody could become a Scrum Master.
Perfect. Thank you very much. And I think it's helpful for you. If you have any follow up questions, you can post your questions. And meanwhile, I'll ask my question. But before my question, there is one more question. Okay, for everyone. What was that? Okay. Yes, we have session tomorrow, and I'm just dropping
Okay.
sales email. Okay, you can drop your query here as in bridge.com. And
Yeah, no, it's a little late notice, but we have a KMP1 session starting tomorrow. The batch is confirmed. We have 8+ people. But yeah, it might be a short notice for people who are interested in Kanban. I usually do one KMP1 session every 2 to 3 months. So we should have the next one shortly in probably June or July.
perfect. That's great. That's great. So, okay, now I think we can move further on our discussion about the Kanban and Agile coaching. So, okay, guys, just, gentle reminder, we have last 15 minutes. If you have any questions around these topic, Kanban, Agile coaching, or the career path of Kanban and Agile coaches, you can drop your question. Just post your question in the comment box. I'll include your questions. So, okay, let me just start with my list.
Mhm.
Okay. How can a team decide which one to use, Scrum or Kanban?
Okay. The short answer is they can use any, right? They can use any. It's not that a team has to use only one of them, right? In my experience, I would say if you randomly select 10 teams, you can apply Kanban for most of them, and you can apply Scrum to most of them. There might be only some cases where you might say, okay, Scrum will work much better or Kanban would work much better, right? What I'll do is I'll share with you common use cases where Kanban teams use Kanban, right? I'll share my screen. Let me know if you can see it. Kumkum.
Yes, we can.
Yeah. So most of the organizations they start their journey with the assumption that Agile is equal to Scrum. Right? That's my experience. Agile means Scrum for them, and they start with Scrum only when teams face some problem with Scrum or they feel some discomfort, some challenges with Scrum implementation. Then they start thinking about Kanban. Right? But in my experience, some cases where Kanban works a little bit better than Scrum or much better than Scrum is number one, when the team is very new to Agile, right? They're transitioning from waterfall, or maybe they didn't have any process. I've seen that a lot in startups, right? They will have a very ad hoc process because the team is small. The whole company could have only, let's say, 10 to 15 developers, and those cases they might feel that Scrum is a big change, role transitions and other things. So Kanban works much better because Kanban it could be an incremental process adoption. You do not need to define sprints, you do not need to change roles. You can start much easier. The other is in the beginning of a fresh project, new development project, right? And when you're starting a new development project, in many cases the requirements are yet to be detailed out for a longer time horizon. So you may want to start quickly. You may have some use cases which are understood to be the highest priority, like something like MVP, you can say. So when the project is very new, very fresh, things are uncertain, the team yet to find a good rhythm, there you can start with Kanban. The other case is when the team is mature, they were doing Scrum. Now, Scrum has a batch flow. Now, they deployed the product to production, and now they are getting enhancements, they're getting defects once in a while. I hope they don't get too many defects, but enhancements would always keep coming from requested from customers, right? What that means is there's a mix of planned and unplanned work. Now, if the unplanned work stays minimal, say up to 20%, the team can continue with Scrum, no problem. But if the unplanned work goes beyond around 20% or more, I see that teams feel a lot disrupted. And in that case, an adaptive framework like Kanban would work much better. The last case is if it's a mature agile team which wants to transition to continuous delivery. Now, in continuous delivery, what happens is if the team, let's say, started with 8 stories for a single sprint, and 2 of the stories are done after 3 days, and everything is ready, done, the team feels, why do we wait for the end of the sprint? We can deploy them right away. So effectively, what the team is looking in that case is an item-based flow. Pick items, and when it's done, you deploy that to production, right? So many teams transition to Kanban at that point, right? So that was a quick summary of some cases, the most common use cases, which are relevant, which will be more relevant for Kanban. Yeah.
Perfect. Thanks, Sanjay. And yeah, so I think we have less time, so I have to be very fast in my question. So, Sanjay, it would be great if you can put some more light on this. How can a Scrum team transition to Kanban in the least disruptive manner?
Okay. Now, sometime back, recently I mentioned that you could use any of the framework for any team, and there are lots of similarities, right? So it's not that if you are going from Scrum to Kanban, the whole world is going to shake up, right? That's not going to happen. There are roles. If you quickly look at what are the different ways, different parts that has to change. So there are roles, there is a requirement management, and there is a flow of work, which means there are meetings and metrics. Now, okay, I'm still sharing my screen, right? Okay.
I've already. Oh, you want to share your screen again?
I okay, my screen is visible, right? Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, it's visible.
So the roles will roughly stay the same. The naming could change. For example, you have a product owner, you can continue to call this person product owner. If you have a Scrum Master, now because you're transitioning from Scrum to Kanban, you may just call this person the team coach or Kanban coach. The role is going to be very similar of being a facilitative leader. So there does not need to be different people who need to be identified. So that's easy. If you look at requirements management, most teams would be using probably the user stories and story point estimation. Both of them can be transitioned as it is. So if you're transitioning from Scrum to Kanban, you can still use user story format, story point estimation. And interestingly, Scrum does not tell you that you have to use user stories or story point estimation. There's not a single mention of them in the Scrum guide. So user stories and story point estimation can be used for Scrum as well as for Kanban. Now, if you talk about the meetings, so these are the most common meetings. I mean, there are 4 events, but if you add backlog refinement to the list of meetings, you have these 5 meetings in Scrum. And in Kanban, I mentioned some time back, we have 3 primary meetings. Replenishment. Replenishment is pulling work for the next week or so. Roughly, it will be done once per week. It's roughly equivalent to these two, right? You would probably do backlog refinement as a part of replenishment, and planning, which is equivalent to pulling work for the next week, happens in replenishment. Daily Scrum is going to be very similar to your daily Kanban, right? Sprint review, there's no meeting defined in Kanban, but Kanban will not stop you from having a sprint review. What you will call it is probably product review because there's no sprint over here, right? Retrospective will be similar to your service delivery review, with the difference that you will now do evaluation of the metrics. How do the metrics look for the team, right? So the teams, if you see roughly the map, the structure is going to be slightly different. The focus will be different because of the primary reason that now you don't have a batch flow, you have a continuous flow of work. Yeah.
Perfect, Sanjay. So you want me to stop your screen?
Let me quickly review the metrics also. I'll not be able to go into details, but I've talked about these metrics. Your burn up chart is not exactly equal to cumulative flow diagram, but cumulative flow diagram will give you similar kind of information that how is the completion, what is the completion rate of work, right? And your velocity chart is similar to your throughput chart. So throughput chart will give you the same information on a weekly basis, how much work the team is finishing per week. Plus, you have some additional metrics in Kanban here. Come back to you.
Thanks, Sanjay. And let me take one more questions, and I think I can help. Hello, I have 10 years experience. I did support already, did my CSM, but not getting Scrum Master job. What should I do as company are not considering my job because of the support profile experience? Yes. See, I can share my opinion, and I think Sanjay, it would be great if you can also share. So it's a three-level thing. CSM will, teach you the framework. Okay, but the practical experience you will get from the mentorings. If you're not experienced, you have to join some mentoring programs. We do have, and we have separate portal for these things, because there is a training and certification. The other part is the practical work life challenges. So till the time you're not aware of those things, it would be little difficult. And cracking the interview is another challenge, because whatever we are discussing in the training will not be there. I mean, that some part will be there, but there will be additional things in the interview. So we do have the interview series also. I'll share that, Seema, if you could share the Scrum Master interview series link, that would be great. It would be helpful. So yeah, Sanjay, over to you. What do you suggest in this situation?
I think you actually covered that. That a certification by itself will not it give you knowledge, but you need to be able to show practical experience of application of that knowledge, right? Which mentoring will provide that support. Yeah,
Right. Thanks, Sanjay. So Sanjay, I have one more question, and I
sure.
don't know how you'll answer this. Scrum or Kanban? Which course?
Scrum Kanban, which courses the right to move into Agile? Uh, So I'll be honest. So even though I do training on Kanban, I do corporate trainings on Agile also, or Scrum also. But if you want to get started with Agile, I think Scrum probably will be better. The reason being, most of the organization they start their journey with Scrum. If you are in a company, or if you're maybe you know of a job opportunity which is going to use Kanban, then of course Kanban will be a better choice. But most likely Scrum would be a better choice.
In my opinion, both are equally important. So you have to just decide first Scrum or first Kanban. So, but yeah, because there are many places where you're using the both approach. So I think we have some word I heard, the Scrum ban.
Yeah.
So yeah, could you put some light on what is Scrum ban, and is it a better option than Kanban?
Yes, so Scrumban as you can guess, Scrumban is a combination of Scrum and Kanban, right? And there's no one definite recipe of Scrumban. There are two flavors of Scrumban. One is Scrumban with sprints, and the second one is Scrumban without sprints, right? And to practice any kind of Scrumban, you need to understand both the frameworks, right? So you need to have a knowledge about Scrum, which most coaches and Scrum masters have in this world. The other thing is you need to have knowledge about Kanban, especially the Kanban metrics. And then that will give you a better idea about, for this particular scenario, do I use Scrum as the primary framework and take pieces from Kanban, which is the version of Scrumban with sprints. The other version, which is Scrumban without sprint, is you use Kanban as the primary framework and take some elements from Scrum. Right. That's my quick thoughts on Scrumban.
Thank you, Sanjay. Thank you very much. And as of now we have only 5 minutes, so let's see how much we can cover in last 5 minutes. Guys, if you have anything, feel free to drop your questions in the comment box. I'll include your questions, and meanwhile I'll have one question. And Sanjay, I think that's the most common question you heard, but this time I'm going to ask this little differently. So what are the difference between agile coach and a scrum master, and what are the similarities in these two roles?
Yeah, so I think we covered that in the beginning, most of that. The Scrum Master is a dedicated coach who stays with the team and and because of the dedicated nature would work with one or two teams max ideally. And the Agile coach is a temporary coach role who would come in, help a team transition to Agile ways of working and mentor all the roles, right? And Agile coach possibly could be working with multiple teams, right? So a lot of similarity in terms of how you work with the teams. You are a coach, both are coach roles, right? One is dedicated coach, one is temporary coach, and the difference is that temporary nature, right? You move on after you're done with those teams, or you move into an advisor role. You, whenever the team needs you, they will call you in.
Perfect, sounds really
Right.
great. And the last question from my side. Okay, what are the most important metrics for the agile teams?
Yeah. So the metrics would depend primarily on the framework you're using, right? And we covered in the previous slide that for Scrum, the most common metrics are burn up or burn down, right? I prefer burn up, but both give similar kind of view. Burn up chart, and then you have the velocity chart, right? For Kanban, we talked about the throughput chart, cumulative flow diagram, control chart, lead time distribution, flow efficiency. Those are different metrics. Now, these are metrics at the team level. If you go beyond team level, right, if you look at, for example, SAFe or any other framework which talks about multi-team scenario, now you might need some additional metrics which would be at higher level, like you want to track the progress of epics or initiatives, right? For that, you some of the metrics could be, again, you can have a throughput chart, because epics and initiatives which are bigger level entity, they go across weeks or months. They are not contained within a sprint, right? So the Scrum metrics will not apply to them, but you can still apply Kanban metrics over there and have epic throughput, initiative throughput chart, epic lead time distribution, initiative lead time distribution, right? Those chart could be done at higher levels.
Great. We have two, three questions, Sanjay. Let's take quickly. And this is
Sure.
interesting question. After working for how long as a Scrum Master, and Scrum Master can become Agile Coach?
Yeah. So there's no definite formula, but yeah, there's some patterns. One is what the industry expects. Industry would expect you to have worked with as a Scrum Master for multiple teams, and you should have minimum experience of 2 to 3 years. If you have worked with only one single team in all those 2 3 years, it might be a little bit difficult. But in those 2 years, if you have worked with, let's say, 5 6 different teams and maybe two teams at the same time, so the richness of experience is going to matter uh, primarily here, right? But at least 2 years is what I would recommend, and try to gain more experience. Even if you're working with one team, try to go to try out different things, from agile world. Go deeper in terms of the maturity, right? Do not get settled with the status quo, how things are working, everybody's fine, so it's good. That may not help you much. Plus, try to also have exposure of different frameworks, like at least one scaling framework. SAFe is the most popular one, but you should have some knowledge of Scrum, Kanban, little bit of extreme programming, and some scaling framework. That's what you would need. Kumkum, you're on mute.
Oh, I'm so sorry. Somebody's asking me how I can join the mentoring programs. Yes, there you go. I'm sharing the link in the window. This is our separate portal, ogilt.com, where you can join the mentoring programs. And let me just share my LinkedIn profile as well with you. We can connect over the LinkedIn and I'll help you with the mentoring programs. You can connect me and then we'll discuss. And I think one last question, which Meghna is asking, will market for agile coaches grow in the future? Everybody knows. Yes.
I, w- I would say no. And interestingly, I started training for ICP ACC in 2016, 6 years back. And people used to ask me the same question: how long will this need for agile coaches, be there in the market? And I used to tell them, same thing. I don't know, but I think it's going to be there for 3 to 5 years. And I'll say the same thing now. Over the past 6 years, I've trained more than close to 1,000 people in agile coaching program. And I'll be honest, the quality of agile coaches, or the number of agile coaches, agile coaches that you have in the industry is very limited. Out of those 1,000 people I've coached, if you were to ask me good coaches, probably I'll pick 10 to 20%, not more than that. So I think the need is going to be there. I still see a lot of companies struggling with the agile transformation. At least 3 to 5 years is my number if I have to choose, pick one.
Perfect. And sounds great. And it's a spillover of 2 minutes. But still, I have one last question. So, Sanjay, this was an amazing, very insightful session. I enjoyed a lot. But just, you know, from your side, I mean, I ask question, audience ask question. So, what you like to share with the audience? Any last minute thought?
Um, there are a lot of questions and people with different profiles. So it was a I thought I'll be done in 30 minutes. So people were engaged and they were asking the right questions. So I'm really happy. I enjoyed the interaction. And the only last word I would say is it's a long journey, right? And there's a lot of learning on the way, right? So good luck to you, and keep the right focus, keep learning, and everything will turn out to be good. Thank you.
Awesome. Good luck, guys. Take care of yourself. And thank you very much, Sanjay, for taking out time for this session. Thank you very much.
My pleasure.
Thanks, Seema.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.